Something we're chatting about today quite a bit. As we speak right now, they're sitting there, Rita, the Nats, talking all about will they, won't they? I think we know what they're going to do.
Well, let's hope sanity prevails, even if it's prevailing some months after it should have. And it may happen during this program. We might get the official word that the Nationals are walking away from net zero. They're going to force the Liberals, just like they did with The Voice, to actually come to a policy position, and hopefully one that is at odds with what Labor's proposing. Because right now, the Libs are completely lost, ideologically confused. They have no idea what they stand for, and they're not giving the Australian public a clear choice. So if the Nationals force their hand, as they did with The Voice, this will be a huge boost for the coalition. Alternatively, it could lead to a divorce for some time until possibly Susan Lee's replaced and, again, sanity prevails in the Libs, because this is what we saw a glimpse of, James, right after the election when the Libs and Nats split. I said that was ultimately a good thing because it would force them to focus on actually what the party is and what they stand for individually and as a coalition. But then they reconciled in record speed, and we've had this mess ever since, and the coalition's primary vote right now is at record lows. I think ultimately, despite the disruption and pain this will cause, it is a good thing for the coalition. It will be a good thing for the country to have some choices.
Yeah, no, look, I think you're right. I mean, that sort of temporary separation, which was more like the Nats going and sleeping on a mate's couch for a couple of nights, before they decided to get back together, does so bring us to the question of whether or not, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, the coalition can be counted on to do the right thing after they've exhausted all other options. And I think that's sort of where we are now. I mean, we've got the Nats, assuming that the party room does fully endorse what the executive said yesterday, that net zero is gone. It will have to force a real, come to reality moment, I think, for the Liberals. This is, of course, though, tearing the Liberals apart. You can see this sort of, weird, almost theological, doctrinal kind of fight that they're having within their ranks. You've got people like Andrew Bragg, the true believer, saying the words net zero are non-negotiable. They must be there. And others saying, well, this is fairly ridiculous. The place where they're coming to a landing on is everybody has to pay obeisance, pay homage to this idea that, oh, yes, no, we must cut our emissions. We must cut our emissions because what Australia does here is so important to, global warming and the temperature of the planet. So they all will continue to genuflect before that idea. But, I think they need to get the words net zero out of it, because as long as you have net zero as an aim, whether it's 2035 or 2050 or, the year 3000, the point is that you're talking about government intervention in the marketplace. And I was just talking about sort of in theological terms, and I think what they need to talk about now is energy agnosticism. They don't care how we get our energy so long as it meets the test of being affordable, reliable. And, yeah, sure, if you cut emissions down the road, that's fine, too. But they need to stop intervening in the market, because every intervention, it is, as Rowan has talked about for years on this, it's socialism dressed up as environmentalism. And it causes huge amounts of problems, whether it's for our power bills here in the city, whether it's the Tomago smelter, or whether it's in all these communities around the country that are being absolutely torn apart by these renewables industry monsters that are coming through and just tearing apart our farmland. Rita?
Well, this is a no-brainer. It's always been a no-brainer. This is why it's so frustrating. We've talked about it endlessly on this program. The Libs, the coalition, will eventually get to a point where they're going to be providing a common sense alternative to Labor's net zero madness. It's just taking a lot longer, and the road seems to be far more rocky than it needs to be, because they only have to look around the world to see things have changed. It's not just Trump in the US, it's not just the UK finally facing the reality of the reckless policies they've backed. You look at Germany, look across Europe. This is a no-brainer, and it's almost out of their hands in a way, because the world has moved on. The world is seeing the consequences of some of that ideological zealotry that net zero requires. And the consequences are pretty much uniform everywhere you look. Costs are higher, reliability is lower, all sorts of national security issues depending on where your reliance is on. And with us, our reliance on China for everything from panels and wind turbines. So this should be the easiest policy for the coalition to sell to the Australian public. The Australian public want a clear choice on this. Every time they've had a choice between cheaper energy and lower emissions, they've picked cheaper energy every single time. And yet the coalition decided it was politically clever to take that choice away and back net zero. It was one of the dumbest political moves in the past 2 decades, and they have stuck by it, losing election after election. Let's hope today is the first step in them walking away from that, and hopefully the Nationals again lead the Libs to a position where they are electable.
Well, I think the Nats will, and we'll hear that shortly, and we'll hopefully hear from them during the show.